When I first started YouTube, one of the things I promised myself is that I'd always be honest. Nothing annoys me more than reality shows that are anything but reality. So in all honesty, I completely underestimated this hike. I heard about an old cowboy trail deep in eastern Utah canyons that almost nobody knows about. This sounded like a great time. It's quite a drive from my house, and I had a limited amount of time, so I decided to just do part of it as a day hike. The old cowboy that told me about it said to go to a place called The Jump. After that, he said it gets really, really steep, so my wife and I decided to head out and give this hike a try. One of the first things that we should have taken into account, and we didn't, was the fact that it starts about 8,400 feet, and the place where we turned around was about 6,400, so about a drop of 2,000 feet. Anybody that's tried to gain 1,000 feet of elevation in an hour or so knows how grueling this type of a hike can be. We failed to take that into account. The fact that it starts high and then drops low lulls you into a false sense of security. The hiking going down is so easy that it's really hard to keep in perspective how hard the hike back out is going to be. Another thing I failed to account for was how long it was going to take us to get to the actual start of the trailhead. By the time we got there, it was during the middle of the day. The sun was pretty relentless by the time we started. Another thing I assumed is that it would actually be a trail. This was more like a hint of a trail. I've seen elk trails that are a lot more defined than this. There was only a few places where you could even tell that humans had actually made the trail at one point. The basic terrain was summarized by steep and steeper. Steep where the trail was, and if you slipped off the trail, eventually it was going to turn into a cliff. You really had to pay attention. The views were beautiful, and we thoroughly enjoyed being in a place where almost no one's ever been. The first mile or so was fairly gentle and didn't drop too much. After that, it started dropping away pretty steeply. That's one side of the trail. That's the other. Here's a couple of shots of how narrow the ridge we were on actually was. It literally dropped thousands of feet on either side. In a short hour and a half or so, we reached the turnaround point. We were still a couple of thousand feet above the canyon floor. We enjoyed the view and then headed back up. This is where we realized how many mistakes we'd made. There was very little shade. We did take advantage of the few places that we found. Turns out that hiking steep uphill at 6,000 to 8,000 feet of elevation is a lot different than doing the same thing at a much lower elevation. Didn't take long before we were winded. One mistake we didn't make was not bringing enough water. Growing up in the desert, bringing enough water has always been important to me. At this point, there really wasn't anything to do but gut it out. There's our tombstone right there. Somebody didn't make it. We'd gotten ourselves into this place, and we were going to have to get ourselves out. So, for the next few hours, we just kind of slogged along, slowly making our way back up to the top. There was nothing really remarkable about the hike out. However, at the end of it, we had a firm reminder of why it's really important to consider every hike on its merits. Fortunately, for the last half hour or so, a summer thunderstorm rolled in, and we welcomed both the rain and the breeze that it brought. Eventually, we made it back to the truck. Not that much worse for the wear. We didn't know it at the time, but our adventure was far from over. But before I get into that, I'd love to hear in the comments about your worst hiking miscalculation. On our way home, we took a different road. The road we took into the hike was plenty steep, but this road barely seemed to be clinging to the side of the mountain. We put the trusty truck in 4-low and slowly eased our way down the mountain. No need to hurry right now. Most of the switchbacks required at least a 3-point turn. Certainly didn't want to make a clutch error here. The whole way down the mountain, I couldn't help but think about the hike we'd just been on. You can bet I'm going to head back down into that canyon. I got to get all the way to the bottom and explore some of those side canyons. I'll be a little better prepared and maybe better in shape before I do. Eventually we made it down to the bottom of the valley and breathed a sigh of relief. We had one more mountain pass to go over. The roads going down these hills weren't too bad though. They had guardrails.